So we got episode 2. We were allowed to come back
I
for
can't
another
believe it.
episode. It's amazing.
I don't think allowed is the word you should use, Adam. I think forced, maybe. I don't know. But allowed is definitely not the word I'll use.
Hey, we're in control here. Right. So
Sure.
today we are talking about influencers, and we're talking about influencers from different standpoints. Actually, I think we were having a conversation just before we started recording. Actually, and Piyush decided to start talking about influencers as a UA channel, and I think that's somewhere where we need to get a bit of clarity on as well. So,
Don't think I
um,
said that, but anyway, we'll ask Marion on what
but
exactly did I ask about it.
if Piyush starts cracking up and everything, it's because he's on holiday. So don't just give him a bit of leeway for this one. Um, Marion, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Marion. I'm an influencer marketing consultant. I've been doing influencer marketing for the past 10 years, mostly on the performance side. So I do join Piyush on the US side of things. But
No.
there are
See,
definitely many other areas to influencer
right where
marketing,
we
right? It
start,
can be
Adam, you
branding,
have to just.
it can be community. So yeah, it's very broad.
All right, Marion, let's begin here. Here's the thing. Let's start right into the question that Adam started with as a joke, but you agree with me clearly, which is influencer marketing as a UA source. What do you generally think about it? Because obviously you're competing with the likes of Apple, Unity, Meta, Google, and obviously they operate in a very different environment. D7 ROAS, D30 ROAS, very clear attribution. Although I wouldn't say that on iOS anymore, but still, it's still close enough. Where do you stand on this? What's your perspective overall?
The thing is that it all comes down to the resources that you have and the skill that we're talking about, right? Because obviously you would need someone internally to handle your campaigns, deliver results, acquire installs, but obviously it's never going to be the same scale, right? So is it worth it for you? If you look at it just on an like volume perspective, the short answer might be no. But the thing is that, and that's what we were touching upon at the beginning, is that on top of acquiring traffic, that is going to be good quality traffic, you'll also get a lot of content out there. You're also going to be visible. You're going to be able to build a community of
Well, it's
influencers
not a
that can.
one-time ad, is it? I mean, the video will stay online for possibly ever.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
I mean, it depends also because YouTube has announced some changes, so that might also change in the future. But at least for now, yes, that's the case. So even after your campaign is over, the video, the content is still live, and it's live for years, right? So that still drives traffic, that still drives visibility. So it's a whole, right, that you have to think about, and also think about the effect that it has on your other channels, right? Because like, and I've been working on analysis where you can see clearly that CPI are going down when you do have influencer marketing. The analysis is not finished, so I don't have concrete numbers to share just yet, but
Yeah.
it is there.
That's
And
super
so
interesting.
you can actually then when you're trying to proposition influencer marketing to any, let's say, client in this case, or anyone that you're working with, do you actually say that, look at it as a performance channel, or do you actually say look at it as a mix of both performance and brand? Because obviously the reason to put I don't want to put brand as like typical brand marketing per se, but what I'm saying is that, as you said, video lives on forever. There's a lot more engagement and stuff happening. There's much less with performance marketing, right? And the frequency is also very different than performance marketing. So do you actually position this as no, I can reduce, the overall, the effectiveness of, I can increase the effectiveness of paid marketing. I can increase the organic. What is the KPI that you typically position yourself with when you speak with them?
I definitely position it, at least personally, I position it as a performance channel, and I strongly believe it is one. Again, it's also about like how do you vision it? Like, yes, it's a performance channel. No, it's not as accurate as your other acquisition channels, right? And my KPI as a goal, as a target, as a north star is always ARI, right? But then it's about the volume of traffic that you can acquire, and I will depend on the game or on the app that you're marketing. Something that is as niche clearly will have a much lower ceiling than some other apps with a much broader appeal.
But isn't it something that you? Okay, I'm going to take a completely different stance here. Isn't it
I'm
something
surprised.
like if you're I don't know. It strikes me that you're thinking, and I'm aiming at Piyush here, that you're thinking of it as you're going to run ads on an influencer's channel to try and capture some of their audience. I kind of feel like that's the wrong way of thinking about this, and you should be like nurturing those influencers who want to work with you, because surely if somebody wants to work with you in the first place, they actually agree with what you're doing, and they have a passion surrounding the product that you're creating, whatever it may be, whereby when they're talking about it, there's an element of there's an element of passion behind whatever they're saying, so it doesn't look like an ad.
Let me jump in here. I think there's two different things. We're talking about like a creator program for like people that are playing a game, that are actually influencers, and they have an audience, and they want to create content for you, and they would create content regardless of if they were working with you or not.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have influencers. And the thing is that some games need to have also the influencer side of things, where they're going to have to pay creators to publish content about it, because otherwise they're not going to get as much visibility or as much traffic as they would need. Like, not everyone is a supercell with an amazing creator program that drives millions and millions of views, you know.
But couldn't you as a company create your own creators? Does that make sense? Like, so you could actually
But you're
create...
talking about community, right, Adam? In that case, it's more about community building on Reddit, Discord, and other channels.
No,
It's
no,
not.
no. It's.
Okay.
I see it more as paid organic. I see it more as you're paying money to create something that's going to
It's an
generate.
oxymoron, paid organic, in case you don't know, but please carry on.
It's going to. You're paying money to generate something which is, you're building it rather than you're. Effectively, it doesn't already exist. So you're saying, if I have I don't know, a game of Snap on mobile, right? And I want people to start an influencer channel or start a YouTube channel talking about my product. It's not the most interesting of things to be talking about, but you want people to find new and interesting ways of being able to express that. So if I was to fund some YouTube channels from people who want to start up straight away and say, right, I'll get you the kit, whatever, and start working with you on some of the content and that kind of stuff, isn't that a stronger way? Because you're essentially paying them to create the content, but you're growing it in a way that's sustainable long term, rather than just one ad campaign and you've pushed it out and it's done.
But it kind of depends on how big is this channel going to grow, and like how interesting is this going to be for people outside that are not necessarily yet playing your game.
True. But I'm just wondering, I guess my question
This is something that I've seen some agencies offer that to clients and be like, okay, we're going to find you influencers that are playing similar games, that have their own channel, and we'll pay them to create a channel dedicated for your game. So it is a great idea. I think the question is then about skill and how much visibility can you get.
And it's a lot easier to fail, presumably.
One of the things, look, again, I slightly agree with you, Adam, on one thing. I mean, jokes apart, it's very rare for me to agree with you.
Sorry. Can you just repeat that?
It's
Slightly,
recorded.
like to some extent, let's say to a level of 7 to 7.5%. I agree with you on one small thing, which is it cannot purely be a performance channel. Obviously, it has a lot more quality and creative innovation associated with it, essentially, right? But here's the thing, like Marian, like I've been looking at performance marketing budget for the last 7 years, and in my experience, what happens typically from a leadership perspective is obviously the questions are asked as to why is the starting budget so high? Like that is, I think, a fundamental problem for me with influencer marketing, which is for a test on Apple, I mean, for a test on Unity, the budget, you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, you know what you're going to get, and then if it works, it scales. Now, there are two problems here. One, obviously, the starting budget is significantly high here. The second part is the results also are not real time as compared to what it is with other partners. How do you sort of solve those two equations of this
The budget part is a real problem, and it's simply because most of the traffic that you're going to get is organic. So you have to make a dent in your organics and actually show that there is an uplift. And so if you're looking into the tier one markets and you want something where the cost of the influencers at least equals the cost of acquiring those users, you will go for the US, but that's also where you see most of the organic. So that's really complicated. In some of the cases, you would go for a geo in Europe, Spain, a Germany, not Germany to be fair, because it's really expensive, but like a France, prove the concept, show that it works, so that you can actually generate that uplift, and then you can translate that to the US. But to be fair, it is often complicated because the value of the users in France does not correlate to the price of the influencers. So that's why you always go for the US. There's no easy answer for that, because in the end, like if you want to make a small budget and you want to invest your 10 or 20K, you're never going to see an uplift. Or you want to try and integrate that into it's complicated. It's really complicated. Maybe you want to incentivize the users to click on the link to get a reward, but even that, like many games are doing it nowadays, so it's not even something that is going to make a massive difference and redirect all the traffic to the link. You could look into maybe giveaways, and be like, okay, if you click my link, play my game, reach this level, you can win a hoodie from your favorite influencer, and that will generate more traffic to the link. That can help you increase that a little bit. But you have to choose. Either you want to look into the organics, or you want to look at the quality of the traffic that you're acquiring without having the full picture of like all the traffic that you're getting.
That's an interesting side question, by the way, which is like, if you actually give somebody a physical present like a hoodie versus a game reward, you see a lot more traction with the hoodie, for example, in this case?
In the case, yes, 100%. Especially if it's the first time working with a creator. The reason for that is because the audience from that influencer doesn't know your game yet, unless you're a very known game. And so even if you might use a gift in-game as an incentive and tell them, look, it's worth $20, you've got 100 gems, great. But at the same time, what they're interested in is their favorite influencer. So if you tell them you can win a hoodie from their merchandising, you can win a 30-minute call with them, it's going to be a much bigger incentive.
But does that also create more like loyalty with your app as a consequence? Because obviously they will equate your app with their favorite influencer, and they've then got a hoodie of their influencer, so they're obviously that's more of a connection there.
That's why in the end, like I was talking about in my testing framework, the final stage of that testing framework is integrate the influencers into the game as playable character, as a skin, as whatever, because then you drive them to the game, but with the appeal of something related to their favorite influencer.
Yeah.
And so that's just like the best way of like driving traffic, but also increasing retention, monetization, and overall campaign results.
So if we were going to start, if Piyush and I were starting our app and we were going to start with influencer marketing, what would you say, like with all the testing that you've done and everything, what would you say the sort of budget that we should be looking at starting at is? Like, what's the entry point?
Let's start with US just to clarify.
US
gaming. Let's pick a casual game.
A decent campaign.
It's a question that I'm always getting from all the calls that I have with clients or people, marketers in general. And my answer is always the same. It depends on how much traffic do you have on a daily basis, organic, in the US, right? And based on that numbers, then we can make some estimation. I'll make you a table where we have different scenarios, optimistic, pessimistic, medium, where we see, okay, what's your baseline of organics? Let's say it's 1,000 installs. We make different scenarios in terms of conversion rate from views to installs. Let's say we're going to be, because we want to acquire users profitably, let's say we do YouTube integrations, 60-second into a longer video. We make those scenarios with different conversion rate based on the audience that you want to target and the influencers that we're going to be working with, and obviously then the countries and the platform. I can work out some conversion rate, as I said, from views to installs. This is going to help us understand how many installs do we need to generate a spike in your organics. Let's aim for 25% more organics than your baseline, okay? We understand how many installs we have. That translates with the conversion rate into views, okay? And based on those views, we can estimate your budget because we know the average CPMs based on geos, audience, type of influencer, and that's going to give you a budget for it in the worst case scenario, pessimistic scenario, to reach at least those 1,000 to 150 installs minimum for us to see that spike in your organics during the campaign period.
So, Marion, it's a bottom-up approach, right? Because you're already saying that I want to make a dent on the organic front, which is improve it by 25%. Then you calculate, okay, these are the installs that you need, then these are the conversions that you need, and these are the views that you need, and then you sort of create. But you still, if I take an example, like just to simplify things here, if I take an example of a DSP, there are publishers, right? Within DSP, when I'm working with a DSP like Liftoff, Apple, and like technically ad network, but whatever, like you have multiple layers of exchange, you have multiple layers of publishers that you're working with, which are the apps where you're showing the ad, right? If I equate the same analogy to influencer marketing, creator one, creator two, creator three, creator four is the equivalent of a publisher, right? Over here. Do you actually get to that granular level data in terms of understanding what could be the impact of installs, what could be the impact of organics, what could be the impact overall on revenue from individual creators? Do you actually reach that level, or you look at it overall?
No, overall, absolutely overall, because I'll never be able to estimate this creator how many installs he can generate. Even after 10 years of running campaigns, even after spending millions and millions, there's absolutely no chance I can predict how many installs an influencer is going to generate unless I've worked with him before. And even from one game to another, it can be completely different, right?
And having the link in the comments and stuff of the video, that's still not enough to, you still get a lot more organic in over and above that. Yeah,
by far. And even if you try to maximize it, so you have a link in the description, you have a link in the pinned comment, you have a QR code on the screen during the integration, this helps increase a little bit, but it's
there's still more organic than anything else. Yeah,
exactly.
So let's going back to sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so then those estimations are a starting point for you to understand how much you need to spend. But then it's really a matter of like launching this campaign and understanding what are the first results. What is going to be the benchmark for your game specifically? Because again, from one game to another, from an app to another, it's going to be completely different. So we might as well make some estimations at the beginning, but we still need to understand for you, where do we start? And then from campaign 1 to 2 to 3, we optimize. We understand, okay, some verticals of influencers are going to show some potential in terms of quality of the users. But maybe we acquire quality users, but we don't acquire enough of them. So maybe we can improve the conversion rate in some ways. Maybe that's when we want to add a giveaway into the mix and try to increase not only the number of people clicking the link, but also the number of people downloading the app in general. And so there's going to be different ways that you can improve your campaign. But it all starts, as you said, with the budget, minimum budget that you need to spend to see an uplift in your organic. But at the same time, it's really about launching that first campaign and getting an understanding of where do we stand.
And is it scalable? Like, I mean, in terms of being able to operate, like we're saying in the first instance of like the user acquisition method, running the ads in the influencers' videos and that type of thing, or like the influencer turning around and saying this is sponsored by XYZ and go and install it, it's a fantastic game. Is that enough to sort of be able to scale that and to be able to spend as much as Piyush needs to spend?
The question is how much you need to spend, because then obviously people have different setup, right? You have teams of 3 people handling influencer marketing, then you can handle, 50 influencers, 100 influencers, 150 influencers, and then you can work also with agencies. And by working with agencies, you might be able to work with a lot more creators every month, right? So it's about obviously the skill. So how many creators can you work with? How much also do they cost individually? Because at the beginning, you're not going to spend like 50K on a single creator because you have no idea if it's going to work, right?
Yeah.
So that's why at the beginning you also start small. So for your budget, whatever it is, let's say it's 50K, you're gonna work with 50 influencers, $1,000 each. And then as you go on and you acquire more knowledge, you understand that maybe true crime is a great vertical for you, or family is a great vertical for you, whereas maybe sports is not, right? And then that's when when you move on to the next phase of like optimizing your campaign, you allow yourself to work with bigger size creators because you've acquired that knowledge before. And that's how
Yeah.
also you scale, number of influencers, but also sizes of the influencers.
And is it literally a case of trying everything? Like, I mean, in terms of the different genres and that sort of stuff, you were saying about true crime might work well and above everything
That
else.
that just makes so much sense that if Adam and I launch an app, the
True
true crime
crime.
would be the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
that will be going for.
That makes a lot of
It's
sense.
quite. I mean, thanks, Marion. We appreciate you understanding us so quickly. Uh, Sorry, just to follow up on that. So let's streamline this, right? Because I do want listeners to understand how exactly this works. So let's say we develop an app, casual category US. Let's take a budget of 100K to start with, yeah? And we will have paid marketing being constant on top of this, obviously. So let's just assume that that already is there, paid organic ratio 50-50, blah, blah, basic stuff. Now, there are three layers within this, right? So there's channel, there's creative, and there is the creator. So three different, like combination of these three is what would essentially work eventually.
Mhm.
So among these three, like how do you reach to a place of whom to pick, where, what messaging? Like how do you reach that? Because in case of, again, if I compare this to performance marketing, we have an algorithm completely dependent on this, trying to find the right audience, the right time, with the right creative, with the right message and stuff like that, right? But it's not there automatically influencer marketing. I think it's a lot more manual.
Exactly.
And so how do you create this? For example, with 100K budget, what are the channels that you'll be looking at in US in a casual gaming category? And what are the who are not name the creator, but like how would you spend this? How would you find a right creator and stuff like that? Be
Yeah.
good to walk us through that.
So all comes down to who do you want to target? Let's say your audience is, I don't know, female 25 plus. Hopefully you have some data about your audience, about your players, like who are they, where do they live, are they more on the
We hope so
countryside?
too.
Exactly, right?
His name's
So
Bob.
we understand their habits, what type of content do they consume, what are their interests, right? And based on that, we're going to be able to try and target some of the verticals. You have to start somewhere. So let's say you have active woman working in New York, no children, 25, trying to eat healthy and stay fit, right? So, okay,
Correct.
because that's the audience demographic, then we're going to be targeting maybe fitness channels, right? Maybe some family channels still, because maybe they will be interested in that, right? So you're going to list all those verticals. True crime is a big one for females as well, right? Listing all the verticals that on paper you think that those obviously make sense, that could appeal to your audience, and so that's your starting point. But then, as we were saying, and because you want to keep scaling further down the line, once you've identified those verticals that do drive a good performance, you'll still need to expand and test other stuff, right? So to answer your question, for your app, I would start with YouTube, 60-second integrations. I would look into your audience demographic, what they're interested in, list the verticals that I think are a good fit, and then we start contacting influencers, and we start seeing where there's an interest, right? Then, as you were saying, there's also about the creative itself, so the brief, right? What do we put in that brief? What do we want them to focus on? At the beginning, you start pretty broad. It's an app, it's free to download, it's relaxing, you could do this, you do that, and that's why I like it, right? And then you give, obviously, the influencers some freedom to try and restitute this brief in their own words, so it sounds appealing to the audience. But then it's all about then following this sort of testing framework, so you can try and optimize your campaigns one by one. But that's why you need to also look at it on a vertical perspective and not only on an influencer level, because from an influencer to another, performance can completely vary, even if on paper they're exactly the same. And so that's why you need to also try to isolate what can be the reason for that good performance, because even from the same influencer, you work with him in January and then you work with him in I don't know, June, second video might not perform at all, right? Is it because the video itself didn't perform? Is it because the integration was different? Is it because actually the audience didn't renew itself and so we've already acquired all the users? So there's a lot of questions, and that does take a lot of time. As you said, it's not optimized. You don't have help with AI. I mean, you kind of have now a little bit. That you can use yourself, like with all the tables that you can make yourself. But that's why it really requires people to have to be fully focused on that. Because if you're a product marketing manager and you're handling already a lot of other channels and you do this on the side, there's no chance you can actually optimize it, because you're going to rely on agencies to help you run the campaigns. Once you get the results, you ask them to maybe deliver some reporting or whatever, but obviously they're not going to have the metrics that you have internally. They're not going to have the knowledge that you have. And so that's why it's really, really important that you actually spend the time and effort to optimize this channel, because otherwise there's no chance. It's just like a matter of luck in the end if you don't
Understood.
look into the data.
When you find one that works really well for you, I mean, you answered part of this question a minute ago when you were saying that you may run 2 campaigns like 6 months apart, and one may not work as well. But if you're running it on a regular basis with somebody and it's working and it's good, like, what are your options at that point? Are you able to sort of create an exclusivity thing with are they open? Are they open to ideas?
They're definitely open to ideas. Some influencers might be more open to discussing what are the possibilities, what can you do to have a more creative integration, to maybe be integrated in the game itself or in the app. It's also a matter of like the size of the creator. Obviously, the smaller the channel, the more engaged their audience, which is great. But at the same time, you cannot work with them on a monthly basis. It's just not going to work, right? So it's also about finding the right rhythm, the right frequency here. You can look into exclusivity, but is it going to be worth it? From a business perspective, I don't know. Something you might want to test. Does it mean if you have the exclusivity that in 3 months, if you run another campaign, you are sure that it's going to work? I don't know.
But does it pay to be creative with the sort of deals that you're making with these influencers? Is it something, because it doesn't feel like there's a white paper saying this is the way you should work with it. So
I think Adam is asking the question that does capitalism work?
I know. I'm
Basically,
like, are we at a bit of a Wild West point where you can sort of spark up some interesting ideas with influencers and actually work with them on stuff?
The thing is that, and as you said, you cannot automate anything, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And you're already spending a lot of time reviewing influencers, reviewing drafts, and if you have to spend time thinking of each of the partnership that you have to do individually with each of the creators, you won't have the time. You won't have the time, right? So it's something that you might want to do with a big creator that you've seen has a real potential, but it also depends on the resources that you have and where do you want to focus your time.
Yeah.
And going back to the reporting part that you said that overall your metrics are very different. Let's say in this case you said I'm going to move the needle with 25% organics, but when you're getting the real time data, it's more about views and interactions with the asset, with the creative itself, right? How do you correlate that? Like, do you make changes? On what basis would you make changes? Okay, this creator is not working, or this creator with this creative is not working. How frequently do you make those changes? Let's assume it's a 3-month campaign. How quickly do you get the data and make a decision?
Know if the ROAS isn't there, if he can stop the campaign.
I didn't say that, but
short answer is no. You cannot do anything. Like, I mean, you review the content. The content goes live on the influencer channel, and you just have to cross your fingers and hope that it's going to be a match, right? The thing is that if the influencer doesn't perform, because everybody's talking about like long-term performance, long-term partnership. If you sign a multi-video deal, you get better deal. I'm not going to sign a 12-video deal with an influencer that I've never worked before. Like, there's no chance. It doesn't make any sense. And even if the first campaign is a success, I will not sign a 12-video deal with that creator because I still don't know if it's going to perform, right? So it is very frustrating, and I think the thing is that you can optimize the campaign, but you will never be able to optimize it the way you do for your other marketing channels.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the frustrating part, because there's so many different moving pieces that you cannot isolate everything, as we were saying. I don't know if I've answered your question, but short answer.
No, I think. Look. I mean, jokes apart. I've been messing with Adam on this, but I personally feel it's not entirely a UA channel. I don't think we should look at it that way. But it's the conviction that you need when you're speaking with the leadership to provide them an answer. Okay, because they look at metrics, right? So it's a conversation around that mostly. One last thing. Not last thing, but one more question from my side. How has, like, you've been doing influencer marketing for the last 10 years? What's TikTok changed for you? Because TikTok scaled up during the middle of it, right? So what has changed for you with TikTok coming in and becoming central to the changes, and obviously with TikTok One, which they allow you to, get the micro influencers to create their own creative. What has fundamentally changed with all of these things?
So if you look at it on, if we look at it purely on a performance basis, and if you want to compare it to, for example, what we were doing on YouTube and have integration on YouTube, a link in the description, it is not a competitor to me, right? Because on TikTok, the only place you can put a link is on the bio of the creator. Clearly, it's a pool user journey, so nobody's doing performance like this. What it did change is that it enables to have a lot more creative created by those micro influencers that you can leverage then in user acquisition, but on a performance basis for to drive traffic to an app or to a game. I don't think it's impacted it the same way. I haven't seen a massive shift from all the clients that have been doing performance on YouTube and be like, okay, let's go on YouTube on TikTok. Sorry.
Got it.
Is it
But
normally?
TikTok's for you.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry,
Go on,
go for it.
Piyush.
No, I was saying, because what I've heard is obviously TikTok with the whole gaming live as well that they've pushed and stuff like that. Like they are trying to become very central to this whole influencer marketing environment. But forget about TikTok. Any other channel beyond YouTube that you see as a potential viable influencer marketing channel?
Podcast.
So ours. That's good. Appreciate it.
Feel free
Uh,
to get in touch for sponsorships.
it's already sponsored. No, sorry, Marian. Please expand on that.
No, podcast. I think podcast is it's a fabulous medium. I think it's very powerful. I think it's even more complicated to attribute than YouTube itself or than influencer marketing itself. But the impact is there. Like there are billions of listeners. The attention is there. So I think it's about marketers accepting that not everything is going to be tracked. And also like figuring out how do you can then attribute this traffic back to your campaign, or looking at it on a more holistic view and see how does that impact my other marketing channels.
You've seen success with the podcast
Yes.
for gaming?
Yes.
Wow, interesting.
That's cool.
Sorry, Adam, you had a question.
No, I like that. It's got me thinking. One last question. So we touched on it earlier, or Piyush touched on it earlier with the sort of the CFO acceptance of this kind of thing and trying to justify why you're running a test in it. Are you finding that's getting any level of understanding is getting higher, or is it still a challenge every time you come up against it?
I think it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Even, and also like I'm working with a company and the marketing director was really pushing for branding because she knows the value that it has. It knows like the halo effect it has.
Yeah.
And the leadership was like all on board. Let's do that. Let's do branding. And now, like 1 year later, they're asking for results. And it's like, well, we cannot show you results because we've agreed to do branding. So, it's going to take longer. And like the effect is just like, it's not specific. We cannot tie it to the campaign specifically. So yes, the thing is that it's still complicated. And also like, even sometimes when they agree to be a little bit more flexible and look at it on a branding perspective or brandformance perspective, then it still comes down to EBITDA, So it's
And is it normally user acquisition departments that are coming to you with this, or is it more sort of, I don't know, community or the product side of the business?
Definitely more user acquisition.
Yeah, interesting.
User acquisition. Because look, Adam, I mean, for me, I think when I look at influencer marketing, because I've ran a couple of campaigns before, there are two factors. One, as she mentioned, organic, for sure. What's going to be the increase? What's going to be the increase in search volume? It's a very direct correlation with when you are running influencer marketing. You should see it if you found the right creative. Obviously, it's, as Marian said, it's a bit of luck as well. You need the right person at the right time. The other factor that I completely look at is CVRs, which is conversion ratio, from install, like click to install, because CTRs don't mean anything in our world anymore. But CVRs is the one that we can see, because that should improve, ideally, because the awareness of the brand itself improves, right, with the influencer marketing push. So the idea is that those two metrics should move. Going back to so last question again from my side.
The last question
if I have to
again.
challenge,
Did you get that?
from my side, he said it last time. If I have to just challenge the notion, because look, I understand the whole interaction with the agency, but if I have to challenge this notion, and just to put you in a hot spot here, TikTok one, for example, the creator influencer program, right? And a similar thing is there with YouTube, similar thing is there with Snapchat and Insta as well, right? Meta as well. So why would you suggest UA managers or UA people to go directly to these platforms, work with them directly, or do you believe there is a value in having an agency in between that can create the whole ecosystem for them?
I still believe in the value for agencies, honestly, because even if you go on those platforms and you create a campaign, you put your brief in there, you open it for people to apply to your campaign, you're still going to have loads of back and forth with the creators, whether it is on the brief, whether it is on them not understanding something, on the prices, on more payment, it's going to be handled by the platform. So that's a good part. But it's still loads of work. Like, you have no idea how many back and forth all the agencies are going with all the creators, because sometimes they don't understand anything, and it's like everything is in the brief. And I receive a concept and I'm like, you haven't read the brief clearly. And then, that's why I'm personally working with agencies. But then I guess it also depends on the scale of your campaign. If you want to run a campaign with 10 creators, well, go for it, do it yourself. Like, that's probably going to be enough then. And you can also build relationship with those influencers. That means, like, in the future, you can also leverage that. If it's working well, you get better prices. There's no middleman, clearly, so it's also cheaper for you in a way. So there are definitely advantages, but I guess, like, at some point, if you want to start scaling, if you want to start exploring other platforms, other verticals, other stuff, then it takes time. So at least have someone internally dedicated for that, and if not, then obviously work with additional help from the other side.
Understood. Adam, unless you have any other question, I'm good.
I
I
just want to
think,
know where we're standing here. Is this actually, should it be viewed as a user acquisition campaign, or should it be viewed as something else?
what do you want to call it? Paid organic, brand
Paid,
performance?
paid organic.
What do you want to say this?
I love paid organic.
No, I'll let Marion speak on this.
I think we can, if you want to call it brandformance, that's something that we can call it.
I like that. I like
Well,
that. Final
that
word.
sounds good.
Beautiful final
That's the
word.
conclusion.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute
Anytime.
pleasure and a fantastic conversation that there were no questions prepared in advance for.
Thanks, Marion. We really appreciate your honesty and candidness here. It's been a great conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.